Yo, what's good my homies? Finally got that Legend of Zelda hype, so here I am with a video about my favorite bosses and my favorite Legend of Zelda game. As you may soon come to know, if you don't already know, Twilight Princess is my #1 Legend of Zelda game, so let's get right to it. Number 5. Argarok, the Twilight Dragon. Argarok is amazing, firstly because of its design. I mean, The Legend of Zelda is supposed to be around medieval times, so dragons are a common theme in some of the games. However, the other dragons we've been given look like this. Sorry, but these are not dragons. Maybe the one from Wind Waker can be called a dragon, but to go along with Wind Waker's cartoonish vibe, it looks pretty goofy. In Skyward Sword, however, the dragons could have looked semi-realistic, but no, instead the designers decided to give them human-like faces. I like their characters, but these are not dragons. Argarok, on the other hand, is an epic-looking dragon. This is what I picture when I think of a dragon. Now, moving on to fighting the boss. When you start the game, Argarok will fly right over you and roar a lot. He's going to fly around, and then you have to hookshot up the pillars up to the very top. Argarok will fly around until he sees you, which is when he will approach you, but you need to hookshot onto his tail, put your iron boots on, and weigh him down, which ironically, apparently his iron isn't too heavy, but the iron boots is. Moving on, you repeat this process again. Climb up the pillars, and Argarok is flying around. You don't have to go all the way up actually, but it is make it a little easier. However, once you hookshot down again, you put your iron boots on, he will crash down and the armor will fall completely off. Well, almost. His back will be exposed and you'll see the gem glowing on his back. As usual, this hints the weak spot in The Legend of Zelda. In a fit of rage, he'll fly in the air, break the rest of his armor off, and you are now onto his second stage. These flying plants will pop out of the ground. I don't know what they're called. But basically, they're flying plants with some soil still stuck to their roots, and they help you hookshot. Once again, you climb back up the pillars. This time, instead of waiting for Argarok, though, you're going to hookshot onto these plants. You can move around on them as you can clearly see, but that won't help until Argarok starts to shoot his flame. Once he starts aiming his flame at you, you keep going around until you manage to hit his back, but if you mess up like that, he's going to hit you with his fire and you're bound to fall down. So you have to do this until you can strike his back a couple times. Going back up, you hookshot onto the plants, you move around until his fire breath starts. As soon as he starts, you can keep moving around until you reach his back. When he stops shooting his fire, you will be able to see the gem exposed on his back and then hookshot straight to that. When you get to that, you use your sword several times to stab it and he will come crashing down like before. Once again, you're going to repeat this. Hook back up the pillars, hookshot to the flying plants, wait for him to spew his fire, hookshot around until you see his back once more. When the gem is exposed, hookshot to it, stab it several times once again, and he will fall straight down. You're going to repeat this process again, but this is where it gets a little bit trickier. When you get to the top, it's going to seem normal like it was last time, like nothing else has changed. So you're going to wait for his fire again. But if you're not prepared for what's coming, you might fall and have to try this again. He's going to shoot his fire at you and you're going to keep moving around, but then he turns around and goes the direction that you were headed towards. So now you have to turn back around to get his back once again. Now that he's stopped, you can hookshot right over to his back, stab it a couple times, and you have defeated the boss. Number 4. Dark Beast Ganon. Towards the end of the game, you basically fight Ganon 3 times. First as Puppet Zelda, second as the Dark Beast Ganon, and third, a full sword-on-sword battle with Ganondorf. Of all these three, I felt the final battle was the best and most difficult to beat. However, I personally don't like seeing the final boss on the top bosses list, because it was obvious already that the last battle had to be the most epic. So in that case, the other 2 times you face Ganon are when he controls Zelda, and when he's in his own beast form. Of these 2, I found his beast form to be the better boss. Puppet Zelda was fun, but it was really just your typical Legend of Zelda energy ball tennis, which gets old. So that is part of the reason I chose Dark Beast Ganon. But I also think the general idea of beast on beast battle is such a good theme for this game, especially since one of the main keys to this game is that you turn into a beast. In this battle, you have to use both your human form and wolf form to beat Ganon, which I think is just an epic way to close the game. Here's how you beat him. Before you fight Ganon, Midna transforms and heals Zelda of the darkness that she was possessed by, which is sort of relieving considering you were fighting her a minute ago, and after all, she is the one you were trying to save to begin with. Moving on, the darkness that comes out of Zelda then transforms into Dark Beast Ganon. He roars at you, stomps on the ground, and that's when the battle begins. He first starts by running around and crashing into a bunch of pillars, which is, fun, I guess. Then he teleports, and the portals will appear, and you're trying to find which one he's going to come out with. Get your bow ready, because then you have to strike the gem on his face. Move out of the way so he doesn't run into you, and then quickly go over to slash the clearly weakness on his stomach. He can also teleport right on top of you. You have to run away before he falls on you, and then once again shoot the gem on his face. That is when you have another chance to hit his weak point. Once again, you repeat this process, but sometimes he will disappear. This is when you have to transform into Wolf Link. When you see him coming out of his portal, use Midna to throw him aside, and that's when you can go and attack his belly. As you can see, there aren't very many pillars left, but be careful when he teleports back. If you're not quick enough, he's going to run into you and you'll lose hearts. Once again, repeat this process, and you can end him. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you beat Dark Beast Ganon. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, we have Morpheal. Morpheal is the boss in the Lake Bed Temple. As usual, the water themed temple is the hardest of them all. Morpheal in itself was just a difficult boss to beat. It took a lot of patience and time to beat him. Let's show you why. At the beginning, you're going to drop down into his lair and use your iron boots to weigh you down quickly. You also have to be wearing the Zora armor, so that way you can breathe underwater. This is when Morpheal will first appear, and as usual, the obvious weak point, the eyeball, is shown. He sort of seems like a squid at first, or sort of. I really wouldn't know how to call that, but it is known as the Twilight Aquatic. Basically what you want to do is you use your hook shot to attack the eyeball. Then as soon as you attack it the first time, it sends its sort of minions out, the fish, the bomb fish, which will come after you if you try to get the eyeball. When you attack the eyeball again, Morpheal will come down, and then you will reach his second final stage. Now this stage isn't particularly, well, how do I say it? He's not a very offensive boss. Rather, he's just really hard to get to. What you need to do is you need to swim to the top of him and try to hookshot onto his eyeball. You stab the eyeball a couple of times, and then you've hit him once. But you have to do this 1 or 2 more times. What you're trying to do is, if you can't, oh my gosh, this boss is so hard to beat. You have to stick with him and try to keep attaching to his eye, but just staying with him is completely difficult. Trying to catch up when he just keeps circling around is really hard to do. You can eventually attach to his eyeball. You're going to repeat the process you did before. Do this one more time and you have finally beaten the boss. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, this boss took a lot of patience considering it took forever to actually be able to attach the claw shot to his eye. But in the end, it's well worth it because you got the piece of Twilight mirror and you also get the heart piece like you do with every boss. Number 2, Blizzetta. Blizzetta is by far an epic boss. I think the main reason I loved it though was because she had more character than the other bosses, and the scenes before and after the battle were amazing. Yetta is a lovable character in the game who is honestly trying to help you. I mean, just look at her. She looks like a bundle of marshmallows. She's so sweet too. But because of her sickness, she can't remember where the mirror shard you're looking for is, and she keeps leading you in the wrong direction. When she finally remembers, she takes you herself to get the mirror, but then this happens. She leads you into a room, and then she walks up to the mirror that she's trying to give to you. She starts talking to herself and becomes a little bit hypnotized by her own reflection. Eventually, the darkness within the mirror takes over her, and, well, this is the creepiest scene in the... that watching it every time, it still surprises me. But yeah, her head pretty much turns around and she becomes evil. All of a sudden, the darkness takes control of the ice, which sounds a little bit familiar. Let it go, let it go. And then she transforms into this giant, I don't even know what you call it. Glacier, I guess? Titanic's enemy. Basically, what you want to do here is you want to keep smashing her with your ball and chain. She's going to be dashing around the ice all around the floor, and until you keep striking her, she's going to turn into her second stage. She hovers in the air, and then, well, all these, I don't know what to really call them. I guess they're sort of like pillars. But they hover around her, and they smash down on you if you don't keep running. What you want to do is you want to use your ball and chain to beat or to break those pillars in order to save yourself a space to flee when they circle you. Now that you have a hole open, you can flee there and then attack Blizzetta as she crashes down on you. You can repeat this process several times to beat her. Like I said earlier, you travel around trying to break those things. Then when you can finally get through, go through the path that you made yourself and then attack Blizzetta with your ball and chain. Finally, she will smash into the wall. In a fit of rage, the darkness will leave her body and she will fall to the ground. And that is how you beat the boss. But that's not the only part that made this boss so amazing. Right afterwards, Minna talks to you, and then as soon as she's done with that, Yeto comes back in, Yeto's husband. Minna talks about how bad she feels for Yetta, but she really doesn't seem to care and wants to keep going. Before you do, another cutscene happens and Yeto comes in, and then Yeto and Yetta have a romantic cutscene for themselves. Frantic for her, he picks her up, and they have a really adorable moment, though it's kind of creepy. Look into the eyes of Yeto. Who need mirror? My love. Aww. Bunch of hearts will come down, and so does your heart piece. Number 1, Star-Lord. This is by far my favorite Legend of Zelda boss of all time. I don't even need to explain much. His design is awesome and the battle is beyond amazing. Here's how it goes. You walk into the room and as usual the door will shut behind you and you're in a room alone. You can see Star-Lord right there, and if you go on to your, oh gosh, what's it called? I can't remember what this weapon's called, but if you go around and... I'm definitely going to need to know what this is called. I think it's just called the spinner. But anyways, if you go around, you can see all of Stallard, and then when you get back down, Zant will appear, and their whole cutscene will come through, basically saying, okay, yeah, you're alive, you've made it this far, but you're not going to survive this. And he makes his sword, puts it in Stallard's head, and then all of a sudden, he comes to life. But hey, that's not surprising. Stuff like that happens all the time in The Legend of Zelda. No questions asked, just go with it, guys. What you want to do for the first stage of the Twilight Fossil Stallard battle is, as usual, you want to get your weapon. So for this case, it would be the spinner. You want to approach his spine, even with all the zombies that appear out of the sand. They look a lot like... Oh yeah, you also gotta watch out for those things. When you're on the... Yeah, again, those things are a real major pain in the butt. You have to keep going and attacking his spine. Slowly it'll break and he'll become shorter and shorter. You also have to worry about all the dead Hyrule Knights that are just being summoned whenever. They also help to guard Stallard's spine, so if you try to get close to it, well, you can't really. What you have to do in order to get past it, you have to use your spinner to attack these Hyrulean Knights, and that creates a slight open way, but even still it's hard to get to because they respawn. But if you manage to, you can break his spine again, and then that will lead on to his second stage. The second stage is purely awesome, and you'll see in just a minute, guys, especially if you haven't played before. Stallard will slink slowly into the water. The sand will pretty much disappear, and his head is the only thing left. On the platform, you use your spinner to rise it up, and that's when you think you're done, but all of a sudden, Stallard's head is up and moving again. And then he knocks you down, which was very rude. What you want to do is you want to get back on your spinner, and you want to ride the platform all the way up. Once you get towards the top of it, Stallard will be there aiming his fire at you. You use your spinner to jump back and forth between the rails, and then you hit his face. If you're smart enough, and you attack it with just spinning moves, then you can defeat him in one go, though usually you will have to do it once or twice in order to beat him. What you have to do is that the challenge will become a little bit more difficult. However, the only thing that really changes is that now you have the other spiky spinny things on the rails that you have to avoid while trying to attack Stallard. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. That was my top 5 Twilight Princess bosses. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you guys have any disagreements, please feel free to leave your opinions down in the comments and let me know what your favorites are. Alright guys, see you later. Thanks for watching. Bye!